But now to some more positive news of Joe Rogan winning the Spotify battle after months of this story going quiet, and quite frankly still is, but we'll get into that in a moment. But first, a quick synopsis of the original kerfluffle, if you will, where Crosby, Stills, and Nash removed their music catalog from Spotify in protest of controversial Joe Rogan comments related to the pandemic. And this was after former member Neil Young pulled his catalog earlier in 2022 for the same reason. Now, this also inspired then Joni Mitchell and Nils Lofgren, who is a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer as part of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band, to pull their catalogs as well. And they said, quote, encouraging all musicians, artists, and music lovers everywhere to stand with us all and cut ties with Spotify, which at first worked in getting Joe Rogan to respond with a pledge to balance out the conversation on his show more going forward, and Spotify to add content advisory warnings to episodes with sensitive topics. Plus, I think they removed many episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience quietly from their platform without really any announcement. It also fueled the internal battle at Spotify of what seems to be a very small group of employees unhappy with the Joe Rogan acquisition altogether for similar reasons shared by the aforementioned artists pulling their catalogs. Well, less than 6 months later, we have the update. And I actually first saw this update on Timcast IRL podcast from Tim Pool, but I wanted to confirm and go to the news sources to make sure. But I guess Neil Young only took actually the catalog portion of his catalog that he owned. And this update where everything is going back onto the Spotify platform from Crosby, Stills, and Nash also was coupled with them saying for a month at least they will donate the proceeds to COVID-19 charities. But this update getting little traction compared to the initial firestorm shows how the mainstream media bias machine works and doesn't actually care about truth or journalism, and that the recovery or the correction or the reversal, whatever you want to call it, of a decision rarely gets covered unless it suits the narrative, proving to me who the principal people, persons, whatever you want to call them, are in this instance. And like I said, I saw Tim Pool's coverage of this and then the People magazine report on it after Billboard had done so. However, the original claim that spurred the boycott was a really vague statement on reasoning for it and didn't really specify the quote-unquote lies and misinformation that they said Joe was spouting. So it didn't really end up helping anyone. If anything, no one became more educated because of their speaking out and just divided people further. Now, the whole donate to charity portion for only a month in this return is kind of a ploy, I think, to silence people calling them out for lacking any principle, and also kind of a ploy for support. So after a month is up, then they can have people know that their catalog is back, and then they can continue to profit off of this. Now, I think it would have gone a lot better all around if they instead had called out Joe Rogan, but also watched and heard what he was saying, and even if they think it's wrong, but with an open mind that he may have a point to what he's saying, but instead appeared to have followed just the trend with vague anti-phrases and labels, because clearly them going back on Spotify shows now they either changed their mind or didn't really believe what they said in the first place. Also, though, it could be the move didn't spark as much action as they wanted, and they didn't want to take the L, if you will, until things had simmered down. Plus, maybe they weren't too happy about their loss in profit from Spotify playing their music or whoever else is influenced or impacted by that move. I will say, though, this has piqued my interest to release my unreleased video on the original blow up of this entire scandal months ago to my member community plus subscribers on YouTube, with a little bit of a reflection added now that there's this update and kind of some hindsight and some 2020 looking back on this whole thing. So stay tuned for that if you are a member. But until then, to see similar videos to this story or the full broadcast where this segment was taken from, make sure to tap or click the playlist or video on the screen on YouTube, or click around the channel wherever you are tuning in from. And with that said, thank you so much for having me in your online life.